Hello, I'm Water Gnann. I'm on the dinghy team here at Coast Guard, and your glorious leader Frank wanted to create a video to kind of describe how to rig a 420, and then some tips and tricks on how to train swabs to sail and rig 420s as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. This here is a 420. This is one of the ones we use on the sailing team, but over the summer you'll have slightly different looking ones. Basically, in every 420, you're going to have a sail bag, and you're going to have to put these little balls in the boat called an M&M every day, and the tiller and tiller extension. When you're going to teach swabs, like some general tricks and tips, is one, you need to tell them what you're going to teach them, and then you got to teach them, and then you got to tell them again. So like in the beginning, like go over the objectives of what the rigging is that day, then obviously go through it, and then kind of try to review and maybe test them on what they know. Also, like, it's important to keep them engaged because they're like these robots that are tired all the time. So it's important to ask them questions, have them maybe like get actively involved in the rigging instead of them standing awkwardly over there while you do stuff. So I typically have questions and stuff for them to do as we rig simultaneously, and I usually incentivize it with Starburst or some sort of candy. You just throw them a piece of candy if they volunteer to stick their paw out. Yeah, so I think from here, those are kind of my general tips. I'm just going to get into it as if I was teaching a group of swabs. So I usually introduce myself. I say whatever. I'm from South Carolina. I love to sail, that sort of thing. And then I'll just get going. I'll say, well, the three main parts of rigging a 420. So that's usually my first point. So three main parts are you have two sails on the boat, and then you have all the tie downs and plugs. So the front sail called the jib, the main sail, and then the third and final part is tie downs and plugs, so you don't sink on the water. So let's get started. We're gonna grab our sail bag, and I like to, if you have the space for it, I like to take it and roll it out on the deck. You don't have to do this once they're a little better at rigging, but especially that first time when they've never seen the sails before, you kind of want to lay them out. So if you just throw it in the boat, it's just this big concrete zone of just like a massive sail cloth, and I don't know what's going on. So I like to start with the jib first, the front sail of the boat, called the jib. And the reason I start with it first is because it's small, and it's a little easier to just kind of visualize, especially if you have limited space. So part of teaching swabs rigging is also incorporating some of the parts of the boat. You'll learn these better later, but there's like little stories you can tell the swabs. So one of them, as you're explaining what this sail is, you can start to describe sail parts. So like this right here, this leading edge is the luff. You got the tack, the clew, the leech is the trailing edge. The top right here, this is called the head, like the head of your body. And then the bottom edge is the foot. So it kind of makes sense, like the head and the foot at least, but it can be hard to remember even for you as a cadre. So I like to tell a story typically. I step on the sail and I say, my friend Mr. Luff, he was walking down the causeway and he stepped on a tack with his foot, and it hurt so darn bad that he didn't have a clue there was a leech on his head. And I know, I don't know how a leech got on his head or why he stepped on a tack, but it helped me remember when I was teaching to the swabs. Because as a sailor, sometimes I forget some things that don't come easily to others. So typically, right about then, I am probably throwing someone a starburst to see if they can repeat it, and I don't know, make it I try to make it fun. We laugh or whatever. You gotta remember it's a learning environment at waterfront, so you just kind of want to keep it relaxed but professional, I guess. You can strike that balance as you enter the summer. The first step to putting on the jib is you're going to take the tack right here where this metal grommet is, and you're going to take a pin and O-ring right here, yep. And you're going to stick the pin through the grommet and the hole. And then this O-ring can be a little hard for people for first time trying it, so I just encourage you to take it on and off a few times as you practice. And then you basically slide one end of it on, and it kind of just gets itself on. We'll say, like, be really careful when you're taking them off and putting them on. As soon as it falls off, it'll fall right between a crack and into the water, which is just embarrassing if you're teaching someone how to rig. So just be careful with that. All right, so once we got the tack in, like a sail, I like to quiz my swabs, like, what shape is this sail? And then they'll say, a triangle. And I'll be like, cool, how many corners are on a triangle? And they'll be like, 3, sir. I'm like, all right, so we just took care of one corner, so now we need to take care of the other 2, right? That's how you rig the sail. So I like to work my way up to the head. It's got this nice blue line, so you just follow the line out, is what I tell them. And the head is the top of the sail. Think about your body. It's the top. So you take the head, again, another metal grommet. You're going to go to the port side, the left side of the 420, and you're going to look at the mast. And you're going to look down and into the boat, and you're going to see what's called a halyard. And a halyard in general is a line that raises and lowers a sail. A jib halyard just says to a sailor, oh, that's the halyard for the jib. So jib halyard. Anyway, you come down here, untie it from the cleat, check for any tangles. No tangles, great. You find the other end of it. It's typically tied to this little rope here. Don't worry about the name of it. Take the metal clasp off, all right? Again, check for tangles. Now you take this metal clasp part, and you put it through the grommet here. Can I get a close-up on this? It's shaped. So let's see if you can see that. It's shaped right there. So what you have to do is you stick it in, and you have to twist it to lock it in place. I don't know if you heard that click, but you can see the shaped part is now out of a line, and that'll keep it in place when they're sailing. So you don't want, it's just a bad day when their sails fall down on the waters. Everything gets wet and whatever. Anyway, it's typically safe enough to just raise the jib on shore. It's not a very powerful sail, so see it's barely flapping. All right, so once you do that, work your way to the bitter end of the jib halyard, the end of the line. And you're gonna have to bring the towel over here for this one. All right, you're gonna take the bitter end. You're gonna go through the black pulley at the bottom of the mast, and then through the top. Now, if you have like a really big swab with you, you can like crack a joke and say like, I bet you I'm stronger than you, and like see how tight they can get it without the pulley system or whatever, and then put it through the pulley system and then show them how much tighter you can get it than whatever jack football player. But anyway, like using that pulley system is really helpful to getting this halyard up all the way. Alright, so right here is probably a part where your skills need to come into play. Tying a cleat knot, like you would tie a motorboat to the pier, is something that you just have to have down before you start trying to teach swabs. So amongst some of the knots you need to master or whatever, cleat knot, an 8 knot, and a bowline. And yeah, cleat knot, 8 knot, and a bowline. Yeah, that'll probably cover it. That covers it, 3 knots. Okay, so we have 2 of the 3 corners taken care of on the jib. Let's get to the jib sheets. Like a halyard, a jib sheet has a specific meaning. So a sheet is basically a line that controls the sail. So we have a halyard that raises and lowers sails. Sheets control the sails, like how far they go out or in. So with this, you'll notice right away you have 2. So you take it off, you throw it on one end, you take the other, throw it on this end. Be mindful that the sheet doesn't go outside the shroud, okay? Shrouds being these sideways wires on either side of the boat. Doesn't go outside, it goes in between. It goes in between the shroud and the mast. So I'm gonna walk over here because it's a little clearer. Now, what we do on the port side is the exact same thing we're gonna do on the starboard side. It's really easy. So again, between the mast and the shroud, you're gonna take the bitter end of the jib sheet. You're gonna stick it through this little hole here, You're going to tie a really simple stopper knot. And the reason we tie a stopper knot is because as these sails flap in like a lot more breeze, it'll pull the line right out if you don't tie one. So you start out to make an 8 knot by making a loop. You do 1 wrap, stick it straight up in the air, and back through your original loop. If you look at the shape of it, it looks like an 8, hence why it's called an 8 knot. Alright, so I'm going to do the other jib sheets really quick, and then that'll be the jib. So that's step 1 of 3 for getting this boat ready to go in the water. All the steps are, get the jib ready, get the mainsail ready, then you gotta do the plugs and the tie downs. Cool, alright, so I just tied a quick 8 knot there for the starboard side. Alright, so again, the main has the same types of sail parts, it's just bigger. Because it is bigger, we don't want to raise it all the way up on shore. So what we're going to do is just raise it like a quarter of the way. I'm going to start out again with the tack of the main. You can tell it's the tack because it has this threaded rope right here and this little plastic bit. Okay, so it's the threaded rope, the foot real thin right here, and then this plastic bit. It's unmistakable. You can't miss it. All right, so we got the tack in. That was super easy. I don't know if you could capture that, but I just went. Oh man, I'll go to the other side if you stay here. So one more time on that. Take the plastic end, you put it right through here and just let it slide into the bottom of the slot. That's it. Nothing to tie in, nothing like that, nothing too crazy. Next, I like to do the clew. And if you remember, the clew is that back corner of the mainsail. I'm just getting that untied. So we're going to come back over to y'all. We're going to do the clew. So has a bigger metal piece. You'll notice it has a thin side by a thin side, whereas the tack had a rope side and a thin side. If you're trying to like figure it out, honestly, you just need to rig the boat a couple times before swabs come down, and this will be lickety split. All right, so it'll really depend on how the boat was de-rigged, but basically the line you want to free up is the line connected to the boom. Now, I'm pretty sure the boom is probably the one thing y'all maybe do know, like part of the sailboat y'all do know already, but basically a boom is just the horizontal piece that attaches to the mast. So this is the boom. On the boom is this nifty rope called an outhaul. It really doesn't matter if you remember the name of it, but basically you need to take this end and attach it to the clew. How do you do that? Typically, you just run the rope through this little hole in the clew. These boats are a little more basically we race these boats, so they have a little nicer systems, which is good for you guys because you're using worse boats, and they're a little simpler for that reason. So they're a little more stripped down than these boats, but the concept's the same. I'm just working it into this hole here. All right, awesome. Another thing that we don't normally put on the boats, but is going to be good for swabs. So the outhaul is rigged. You're going to take your M&M, and you're going to attach it to the head of the boat. And basically the logic in putting this thing on your mainsail is that, say this swab or you, while you're practicing flip, this provides a little bit of buoyancy so you don't turtle. Turtling is when you fully capsize, and it's not the end of the world if you turtle, but it's a pain in the butt, honestly. And you usually stick your mask in the mud because it's kind of shallow here, so it's definitely a smart thing to put this M&M on if you're a beginner sailor. That's my summary. So anyway, make sure you don't put this mainsail up twisted. So just look at the sail, kind of maybe flake it out, and just look to see that the track is clear, and you'll be good to go. Basically what you're going to want to do, again, we're going to employ that 8 knot again. So you're going to stick your bitter end of the main halyard through. Okay, you stuck it through the hole once. You stick it through the M&M's rope. Okay, and then you take the bitter end and you put it back through. So you did one full loop around, right? and just tie an 8 knot. One last thing is you're tidying this up. You're gonna want to tighten that 8 knot into the clutches here. So see, it's kind of like hanging around, lots of slack. Just work the slack out. So work the slack out, you know. Again, try to find opportunities. Like if your swabs have already had knot tying before they came to you, you know, hell, just have them tie all the knots and try to get them to rig the boat. I kind of did it every time, like differently, just depending on like who was in the group. If they're a fun group, just depending on the energy. So just be prepared to use different opportunities to your benefit, to their benefit too. So like I said earlier, you don't want to raise the main all the way on shore. It's a bigger sail. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna raise it to the first batten. A batten is just this thin. It's like a rib in the sail. And this is it right here. If you like feel it when you actually get on the boats, it's rigid. So you just raise it up, just past in the slot, and then stop there. And you can just temporarily tie it off on the cleat on the bottom of the mast. Remember, the main halyard's on the starboard side, and the jib halyard's on the port side. So that's an important one to remember. All right, so we took care of all 3 corners on the main, all 3 corners on the jib. Last thing we need to do is take care of the plugs and the tie downs. The boat is tied down in 3 spots. It's tied down on the starboard side. I've already taken care of those when we did the sheets. It's tied down on the port side, same deal. And then it's also tied to the bow. A bowline is tied from the bow to the wooden rack itself. And this is important. I've seen it a couple times. Big storm rolls in, you know. Maybe those tie downs on the side weren't super tight. They fly off, and the boat is just hanging on just by the bow line. So it's important that when we wrap up every session, you know, you'll probably be running tight on time to make sure that these boats are tied down properly so we don't lose anything. Once you take the tie down off, as you're getting ready to go sailing, you just throw it in the boat. It really doesn't matter. They're just swabs going for a sail. All right. Now we need to do plugs. At the end of every day, make sure the plugs are out. This helps the tanks air out and preserves the boat. Keeps it rigid for longer. There's 2 plugs. You have a plug on the starboard side and a plug on the port side. If you don't put this in, the boat won't necessarily sink, but it will get really low in the water and probably won't move. So make sure you get these hole plugs in. And then at the back, there's typically a tennis ball or 2. This is a weird bungee setup, but basically all I did was pull the bungees so that they're tensioned enough that this boat doesn't fill up with water when it goes in. That's just the main deal. At the end of the day, make sure you take them out. All right, we are ready to launch the boat. So right about now, I'm typically asking them, you know, where's the wind coming from? And that's important because when we have to raise this mainsail, we need to make sure it doesn't catch the wind while we're trying to raise it. Because, I mean, that's just bad news if, like, you're trying to get your sail up and you're not ready to go and the boat starts sailing away with your partner. So basically what we're going to want to do is figure out where the wind's coming from, and then we're going to launch the boat and point the bow directly into the wind. So right now there's not a lot of wind at all, so that works. We're just going to splash the boat. But if there is wind out there, you're going to want to splash it and make sure the bow is oriented to the wind as best as you can. So we're going to go to it. I usually have, I've been doing it a while so I can like do this, but I usually have like 1 swab, like, or 2 swabs, like, holding the boat as they push it in, because I've seen them let go before, and it's just silly. Alright, so imagine, like, someone's just holding the boat on the side of the dock. Since Frank here is videotaping, he can't help me hold the boat. Look at that bowline coming into play like that. Amazing. Alright, so imagine someone's holding the bow for you. This is not like, you don't have to have them do this, but I like to do it. I feel more centered on the boat. I like to sit straddling the mast, but something you can have the swabs do before they get in the boat, kind of like a helpful beginner tip. That board right there, that blade in the center of the boat, that's called the center board, and if you stick it down in the water, it's going to provide a little more resistance to rocking, and especially for people who have never been on a boat before, or like maybe aren't like strong swimmers. This would be helpful if you have them push it down a little bit before they get in the boat. So this is just me working it down right now, so that when I step in the boat, it's less rocky. So I'm going to step into the boat. Again, I'm keeping my weight in the center, and then I sit down. I like it like this because it doesn't heel on top of me. Now remember, the main side's on the port side, so here we go. Here's the main. Now I'm going to undo it from the cleat. And again, much like the jib has a pulley system, so does the main. So basically, we're going to take this sail and we're going to feed it up. Now you'll probably notice at some point maybe you'll accidentally leave the track, as I've done. And what you need to do is say, oh, you just got to come back down until it goes into the slot smoothly. So I've been doing it for a while, so I just have to keep my hand here as I raise it up. All right, perfect. Now this little ring ding here, it turns into a 2-to-1. So we have nice pulleys down there for the jib. But this works much the same. So I just take this loop and I put it on my cleat, and then I pull and then tie this to my cleat, kind of like that. And it's gonna be hard for y'all to see, but this is a 2-to-1 pulley system, and it does the job. So anyway, you're gonna take the loop, you're gonna put it into the bottom of the cleat. And again, we're just making sure their sails get up all the way, you know. I mean, it really doesn't have to be perfect, you know. So anyway, put a little tension on it. Again, it comes back down to that cleat knot, if you know it already. So one wrap down the horn in your locking hitch. Cool. All right, so this is about when kind of checking the boat for them. Now, typically, I have the swabs do this. I'll have a swab pop in the boat to raise the main. Well, another one probably does the rudder when they're done with the main, something like that. So we have them do the centerboard down halfway. Then we had them raise the main. Last step, let's get that rudder in. All right. So the rudder, far out. The rudder has 2 holes in it, one here and one here. And you notice at the transom of this vessel, you'll have 2 what's called pintles, and they look like just straight up metal spikes. You take the holes and you just line them up with the spikes, and it slides right in. It's not too hard. All right. When you're trying to take this thing out at the end of the day, there's a metal tab on the bottom pintle. You push the metal tab in, and you lift the board up, it comes right up. Okay, here's your tiller. Much like a steering wheel in a car, this stick helps you drive the boat, manipulate the rudder. It's pretty easy to put in. You take this fat end, you just stick it in. You take the bungee, this bungee over here attached to the rudder, you just slip it around a horn on the tiller, so now it won't slide off. And you're ready to go. So basically, this is when you want to tell the swabs, all right, you've done the rigging on the boat, you know, maybe you're getting better at this. This is when you want a codger to come and check your boat. And yeah, obviously, if you're teaching the swabs how to rig, you'd want to check their boat before they go for a sail as well. So this is it, yeah. So this is when I give the swabs, like, I don't know, like a talk. Oh, they go for a sail, and then they come back into the dock. Now what, you know? Well, we got to do everything reverse, basically. So we're going to start out with the last thing we did, which was the rudder. So we walk over to the rudder. I don't need to re-explain it to y'all, but pull the tiller out. Pull the rudder out. All right. Come up to the centerboard. Now, they're not really stepping into the boat, so you might as well just have them pull it all the way up. Centerboard's all the way up, all right? I'm kind of big, so I rock the boat a little bit. All right, made it around safely. I undo the main halyard. Make sure they drop that main halyard in the center of the boat. Again, once they get to the dock, that bow needs to be pointing into the wind. That's key. Make sure the bow is into the wind. Okay, drop the main. Much like we raised the main to the first batten, we're going to drop the main to the first batten as well. So dropping the main here. All right. Okay, so again, while maybe the skipper hopped off the boat, their crew was holding it for them. So together, they're going to pull the boat up. All right, so when we first started this, like when we actually started the like boat teaching, rigging, whatever, I said there were 3 steps to the boat. I said rig the jib, rig the main, tie downs and plugs. So we're gonna do it all in reverse. We're gonna do tie downs and plugs, main, jib. All right, I'm right here, so we'll do the bow tie down. Remember, it's a bowline to tie it to the wooden bunk. So that's probably not something I could show you on video, or maybe later, but anyway, you want that bowline to kind of look like a life jacket. We'll move on. We're going to go to the starboard side tie down. I undid the jib sheet stopper nut, threw it out of the cleat, put it through the hole on the side, and then through the cleat there. Honestly though, let's say that maybe like that tie down's not long enough to reach there. You can always just wrap it around here, make the number 4, stick it through. That's 1/2 inch. Make the number 4 again, 2/2 inches. And this won't go anywhere either. So just, you know, I mean, it's just rope, so tie another knot with it, you know what I mean? Okay, so I'm gonna do it properly because we do have the cleats for this. All right, go to the port side, do the same thing on that tie down. Again, undoing the port side jib sheet. Okay, tie down for the port side. All right, so we did all the tie downs. We got the bow on the sides. Now we need to do the plugs. So I'm undoing the port side plug. Starboard side. All right, plugs are out. Let's take care of the main. I'm gonna walk over to the starboard side where the main halyard is. Alrighty. Go to the head. When you unattach this M&M, I usually just throw it in the boat. The derigging process, while you may need to be practicing it, you know, rigging and derigging, honestly, derigging is just taking things off, and this is a really great time for the swabs to get hands-on and hands-off from you. So maybe you step back and you say, you know, you give them little hints, but you're not doing much as they derig the boat. It's not too complicated to just take things off, you know. So we're gonna, after they get the head off the main, we're gonna come over to the flue. Just get the out hole off, however it's rigged. Shouldn't be too bad. Out hole, remember, is it's that rope on the corner of your boom. Okay, and then what I have them do, since I have a group of typically 4 to 5 kids, I'll just have one of them take the mainsail and get it off the boat for 2 reasons. One, it declutters the boat, we can see things better, and the second reason is we have to roll it anyway, so getting it off the boat just helps the process get sped up. Earlier when we did the tie downs, we took care of the jib sheets, so we still have 2 more corners to go. I'm gonna walk over the port side where the jib halyard is. Notice if you try to take the tack off when it's under tension, you can't get that pin out. So you need to undo the halyard, then you can get that pin out. So I'm come over the halyard with that purchase system. Okay. Alright. Be mindful when you're derigging and rigging of skying halyards, which is where you pull the halyard all the way up way past where it's supposed to go. Someone will do it once and you'll remember and not let that happen. But a good way to keep track of where your halyards are and not sky is when you have halyards just floating around, you can just tie them to something. So I tied our 2 main halyards to the shroud. It's not going anywhere. So the jib halyard gets tied to the Cunningham, or the Smart Pig, or whatever y'all are calling it these days. And that just basically, what it does is it keeps it kind of flush to the mast. It looks nice. Keeps it from skying. Alright, so jib halyard is taken care of. Last corner on the jib is the tack. We're going to take the O-ring off. This is probably a good time to show you. You're going to take one finger, you're going to push the head of the pin so that it won't move, it won't spin while you try to spin off this O-ring. So you're going to take it, you're just going to twist it off, and voila. If you have a really new O-ring and like the pieces of the metal are really close together, you can always take a piece of pliers and bend it a little out of shape, just a little, so that's easier for you to take it on and off. And that's not a bad thing if you want to do that. Alright, jib's good to go. Let's take the jib off. Alright, we roll our sails a special way. First thing you want to do is take the main out and lay it flat on the bed. Again, this is really sped up by swabs. You know, you just send them to one corner or the other. Again, this is another great time for teaching. You know, you can do the Mr. Luff story with them, throw a starburst their way, that sort of thing. Alright, the way we roll our sails is leech to luff. So the leech of the